All right, so I wanted to make a video on going over a process for trading a daily breakout setup. Um, the one reason I really wanted to do this was because I felt like when I would find a good breakout setup, I wasn't partialing consistently, which would then result in lower P&Ls and inconsistent P&Ls, not taking advantage of like the bigger days. And I knew this was an issue, and I was planning on going over this eventually. I've just been having so much kind of light bulbs and success the last month that I was just kind of waiting till I got everything going here in Chicago, and I'm consistently at the desk, and I definitely am now. I mean, every month now I'm going to be here full time here. So I feel like now is the time where I want to buckle down on getting a little bit more disciplined. Anyways, so I just started with the daily breakout one because that just seems to be one that I really like and understand right now. But I do think I could do some other ones here in the future. But I definitely went down a little bit of a rabbit hole for this. At first, I just wanted to come up with a combination of all the common variables that we talk about and use them to give myself rules on when to partial. You know, when the price hits 1 ATR, I am now looking for a new 5-minute low to then partial the majority of my shares, et cetera, et cetera. Things like that where I lock in profits and I do it consistently and I follow a plan on a piece of paper or whatever, rather than looking at my P&L and saying, okay, I'm up 4R now. I need to partial because this is getting crazy. I'm up 4R. But that's just that. And you could totally say that that works, and Thor does it like that. But for me, it doesn't work like that because I struggle even to get to 2R or 3R or even let alone 4R. Like I struggle to even see that on the P&L. And so that's why I've been drawing ATRs, the ATR trend line on the side, because I'm just trying whatever I can to like hold and stuff. But I think now as I'm getting more confirmation on seeing a breakout actually happening and knowing it's a breakout and knowing what level it's breaking out from, now I think I'm able to, okay, I'm going to build the system and I'm going to hold this bitch longer. So anyways, so let's go through this. I made a bunch of charts here and kind of told you the process or the series of steps on how I would get to that point. Before I come up with the variables on how to partial, I needed to come up with the process on what is a breakout. And then, I basically we have a process for everything. We have a process for the higher time frame setup, and then we have a process for scanning and if it fits our criteria in the morning, and then we have a process for, okay, what is it giving us at the open or in the first half hour? Is it giving us an entry? Is it doing what we think it is? And then once we get in, okay, what are we looking for to get out? So it's like we have multiple processes within the big process. So I started with AMD because it's just given all kinds of good moves here in the last year. Here's the daily setup. You can see here that first of all, you find the higher time frame levels to then trade against. And so for me here, you can see how AMD had a big breakout in August of last year, and then it created a higher time frame yearly value range here. And you can see here how the top here is resistance. It does break above, but then gets back under, and then this is support. And you can see how it's just clearly confirmed multiple times where this is definitely support. Higher time frame buyers come in here, and higher time frame sellers come in here, or these buyers, sell the positions here. And it's going to continue like this until something changes, like a news catalyst, etc. So what I'm looking for is, okay, if I want to trade a daily breakout, specifically long, I'm going to look to do that starting down here because I know there's a huge higher time frame, bigger idea support here that's going to hold it up here. And once I see that this thing starts to continue repeating what it's going to do and it starts going up, well, then I know that even if I get a daily breakout this way, I have the higher time frame idea as well to help me give me that probability that it's going up from here at least to here. So here's the first kind of look on the higher time frame. And then I even looked at it on the weekly, and you can see here on the weekly it looks even better. You have the 3 bars breaking up, and then you have the pullback, and the weekly shows it even clearer how this is support, this is resistance, and then you have another resistance level up here, right at $100 here. So then, I'm looking for clear higher time frame support, and I just kind of marked the areas where they repeat themselves and make these levels even stronger. So right here, so my conditions for a daily breakout. So that was the higher time frame. So a slightly smaller time frame is going to be looking at the individual daily candles. And so what my criteria is for a daily breakout is to have 3 inside days in a row. So I want to see 3 inside days in a row, and it needs to be above this, or it needs to at least have hit the $74 to say that it's now reached the most bottom point at least, and now I want multiple 3 inside days in a row and looking for a potential break up, because I have the 3 inside day breakout as well as this range support bounce going for me here. So then, so if you see here, we had so the final low was this green candle that gapped all the way down here, and that was sort of the range that was created, kind of a wide range here. So then we had 1, 2, 3. We had 3 inside days inside this big candle, and if you see here, we had even more days after that. So we ended up having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total days inside of each other. And so then this day had high R vol, so something's happening here. And then the next morning here, price is near the top of the range, and we have high R vol in the morning. So now, what is my process for potentially watching this in the morning? Well, my pre-market scanning discovering period criteria is R vol needs to be over 100%, 140%, either in the pre-market or right at the open. At least 5 minutes goes by and the R vol is still staying high, which is telling me that bigger players are getting in, and this might be breaking out of this 7-day range here. And then what I also want to see is after discovery mode is over, and once 30 minutes has passed, I want to see price stay above this daily range, which tells me that the combination of high R vol and holding above this level means that it's going to continue higher, and that's what I want to see happen. So far I have a criteria for the higher time frame. I have a higher criteria for the daily setup, and then I have a criteria for reasons for scanning it and seeing it in the pre-market and having it on my watch list. Yeah. So then the next setup is conditions to be met. So this is just showing what happened. This was the morning, the opening. Not very pretty. You can see how it kind of wicked up and down through the level. So it really didn't fit my criteria just yet. I would have wanted it to hold above here cleaner, or even pull all the way down, hit the support level from the day before, and then that would be a potential entry to get above 76.82, and then see it hold that after a half hour, and then get long. So really, this didn't work out for me, but that's okay, because I'll show you how it eventually does work out. Again, like I said, I would have wanted to see price. Price was opening near here, which is great. I would have wanted it to come down hard, hit this value low from the previous day, and then get in some, getting in for the hold above this level, and then the actual move here. Or price opens up here, breaks away right away, flags, and creates patterns right away. So one of those two setups, but none of them happened here. So I didn't get to trade that. So then a few days goes by, And you can see here how on the daily it is holding 76.82 now, and it's creating a new range. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inside days again. So that's great because the more inside days, the more compression is happening. And then this following morning, we have high RVol, potentially a news catalyst. We have price opening right near the top here of 78.82. And so we're looking for the smaller time frame criteria to be met so I can enter the trade. So here's the same view of those daily candles just on a 5-minute chart. Here was that past kind of breakout that I didn't trade here. And then this was the range that was made. And you can see here how it's compressing, smaller ATRs, pivot points are getting smaller, et cetera, et cetera. Price is now slowly going up to the top of this daily range here. And yeah. Shoot. Oh yeah, here we go. I think I messed up. Okay, here we go. So yeah, this was the same thing. So that 78.82 looks like price opens up just below it here on the 5-minute chart. So does this fit all my criteria? Yes, it does, because now it's immediately above 78.82. We have much higher RVol. That's continuing. So you can see here how we have a spike and it does go down, but look, it spikes again. And this overall average volume is way more than all of this, okay? You can even see here that it dies really quickly on this kind of potential breakout to the top of the daily range a few days ago. And it dies here. Here we have continued RVol all the way up until about 11, and then it holds its new value. So this fits my criteria. It gets above 78.82 and have high RVol, and then I put my ATR, which this is actually incorrect. I think ATR starts right here. And I put that in place, and then we'll talk about my entering, specific entering, and then my exiting process. One second here. Okay, so I didn't go over the 1-minute specifics for this setup, but AMD gives multiple daily breakouts, and so I end up breaking down another 1-minute chart here in a couple slides. But you can see here how it did move more than an ATR with high RVol, and had I broken this down, hopefully I would have gotten in, and I'll have a process here for how I'll partial this and take advantage of more of this and take advantage of them consistently. So here was another one here. Okay, so that was the breakout that I just described on the 5-minute chart. That worked out. And then if you notice, it gives you another range. So I wasn't able to take this breakout, but I was able to take this one, and then this one I'm going to break down here on the 1-minute. But again, what is my criteria? My criteria is more than 3 daily inside candles in a row. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and on this 13th day it breaks out. So this is setting up for a massive move here, much bigger. You can see how it's much bigger than this and much bigger than this. And you can even see these candles are even bigger, so they're kind of creating a pretty big ATR potential. So, and this is a side note, but what I've noticed that, if you've noticed here, I'm taking these breakout days, right when it gets above the top of the daily range. However, these breakouts are happening towards the bottom here. And this is a separate trade, and I'm going to do a separate process for this, but it's just I'm seeing it over and over. Right here, this does break out, but the breakout actually happens on this day. it makes its move from the support with high R vol on this day. And you see how you get a much bigger ATR move, and then you get the sort of the continuation here. And then this is a perfect example because you have this nice range, and look, it actually does break down and then comes right back up. And on that coming back up part, the R vol increased like crazy on the second half of that day. And then right away price opens up here, and then boom, just rips up. So really on a 2-day, if you were looking at a 2-day chart, if this was both candles combined, this would be like a massive wick, and then all the way up, all one candle here. So, but that's just a side note, and that's going to be a separate process. And this is what it did on that day when it wicked down. You can see this was the bottom of that daily support. It rips down, flushes down with all this volume, and then all that volume continued, and it got right back up, and then right at the open, price opens up right there where it waterfall down, and sure enough doesn't even get back down again, gets right above it, and then all that R vol increases. You see how high that first 5-minute candle is here, super duper high, and this thing ends up being a massive move to the top of the range and continues. So it starts inside the range. It even gave you a fake breakdown. So if you got long here, you had so many different points where it just kept breaking out. You had an entry here, you had a breakout back into the range here, you had a breakout of the top of the range here. You had like 3 massive moves here. Okay, so let's continue here. So here was that move. That was that fake breakdown. Opens up at the bottom of the support. You can see it moves a full ATR, and then moves another ATR and a half once it actually breaks out of the daily range. So you can see how this was a massive breakout, 1.5 ATR, and it even moved a full ATR from the bottom of the support. It's just a massive volume. Okay, so we had that breakout right there, and then now we're having compression again. 3 inside days in a row. We're having more than that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 so far. And then here is the here's the breakout. Here's the 5th day that breaks out here. And so you can see here, this breakout day was right here, and then it compressed for 4 days, like I said, and it gets near the top. On this morning, we have high R vol. You can see volume increases, and then it breaks out. It breaks up to the top, to the tippy top of this range, and then breaks that again, and you get multiple moves here. So here's my process. Okay, so here's my process for getting out. Okay, so what I'm going to use is I use my ATR range, which is the 14-day average, and then I use my 15% risk stop here. And so once it gets above my level here, and we have the high R vol, fits all the criteria, I'm looking for multiple ways to enter. Basically, I get in on any ABCD flag pullback that it gives me, because I'm already confirmed and have the idea that price is getting away from this level here. I know it's going up. It's going to go up different ways every time, but for the most part, it's going up, and it's going up with a high degree of intensity and volume. So I really don't want to wait too long. These probably even work pretty well for the open. So I'll probably enter some of these with smaller positions down here. Maybe even if I get it correct and I get long right here, and it's done discovering and it doesn't come under anymore, and I get long right here, I will probably then add in heavier on the actual pullback, 5-minute high, ABCD flags, consolidations, etc. So right here is my 15% risk stop. Once I notice that it has a pullback, it has a candle or two where it stops making a new high, I'm going to get in on the new 1 minute high. And if you see here, it would have worked out really well because even though it does break up, you get a nice pullback and it even closes down here. But you can see here how my risk, the length of it gives me enough wiggle room to where price even comes down a little bit, and it could have come down even further, and then it eventually broke up. And you can see here how it did it again, and it would have worked most likely again here. I'm not sure if it would have worked there, but it definitely would have worked here. So once I get in, whether I get in down here or down here, and it's not always going to be this pretty and this fast, but say it is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what's 90% of my ATR here. 90% of my ATR is going to be my main target. Once 90% of an ATR is hit, I'm not going to partial, but I'm going to put in a trailing stop. And the trailing is going to trail by 15% here. So once it's hit, I'm not sure if it's going to keep going. The idea is that it's probably going to move more than an ATR, but that I don't know how long it's going to take to move that second part of the leg. And so once it crosses this, I put in a trailing stop that trails it this far. So for example, it gets up to this height right here. As soon as it drops down lower than here, it will partial out 70% of my position. That way, if this move was done and maybe my ATR was off, none of this stuff is perfect. And if I could back test it, I would, meaning if I could put in all these if-then statements into a computer and say, if R vol is over 140% and if price breaks the high of a 3-day range, what is the average move for every one of those stocks? And it could run through, thousands of stocks and give me all this data and say, well, Charles, it hits its ATR 45% of the time. The other 65% or 55%, it reaches, but it might tell me like a point of diminishing return. So it might say it actually hits 70% of its ATR 80% of the time. So that would tell me, oh shit, well, I'll work around that 70% of ATR because I know that hits it 8 out of 10 times. So that's where like putting it in and back testing it could, that's how Bella and them talk about finding your edge, is when you kind of find specific edges like that, specific probabilities. But anyway, so this will have to be tweaked, and maybe I'm too high up here on the 90% of the ATR. But the idea is that ATR has been compressing for multiple days. And so the ATR average should be getting smaller. And then when we're dealing with the breakout here, it should sort of revert back to its slightly bigger ATR. And then even then, it should move more than an ATR. So, without back testing it, I'm just going to say that if I get my good entry way down here, I have a feeling that this 90% ATR is going to hit quite a few times. And the idea is that this 15% risk stop might give me the ability to make another leg up. It might not get stopped out. It might go all the way up here. So say this doesn't pull back this much, and it doesn't stop out just yet, and I get all the way up here. Well, then the only drawdown is 15%, and so I'd get 70% of my position out right here. So that's like a massive move. I'd probably get like a 6R, 7R move there and capitalize on it. So here are different scenarios that actually could happen, because we know that it never works perfectly like this. And for these breakouts, a lot of times I'll see a really good move at the beginning, but since the move is so fast, we have a nice, or like a really long pullback. Like it pulls back all the way to VWAP, takes another hour and a half, and then it eventually turns around at VWAP and makes a whole new leg up, and maybe then makes this leg up here, which then I said, I could add in here. So the idea is that I would have gotten hit here, 90% ATR hits. It pulls back. It does fill my order. I take out 70% of my position. I have 30% left. But the idea is to use that 30% to get a whole nother trade. Pulls back after a few hours, hits VWAP, makes a new 5-minute high. I get in. You know, my stop moves up, and then I potentially get a whole new move up, and I guess actually I need to come up with a process on how much to hold for that. Or I was saying in this position, if everything moved just like it does here on the chart, I'd get stopped out here, or I'd get filled, excuse me, here, and then instead of pulling back to VWAP, this is an even stronger stock, makes another entry that I know and believe in, and it breaks out of high of day with VPA, and so I add in here, doing my same 15% risk stop here, and then I get a whole nother move, you know, partial somewhere up here. So that's where I'm getting at so far. It's not perfect. So here are here's a couple of those other moves. You can see here that if I had traded, this breakout was the earlier breakout, like a few weeks before. Had I gotten in here, even though price opened down here, it holds this daily range here, and I get in, it moves almost a full ATR, hits my 90% ATR. I put in my risk 15% trailing stop. It gets filled right here, so I get 70% of my shares realized here, and you can see how that took a good 2 hours to do. 2 hours is really long for me, so this is good. This is why I want to follow this process, because I'm not good at holding for this long and sort of believing in that it's really going to play out. But then the other part of it is nice, because then I profit that, and we get a really good pullback all the way to this past support here, and then I can get in on a new 5-minute high, or get in on a new consolidation 5-minute high, and then make that 30% shares back up to 50 or 75% of my shares, and get a whole new leg up, partial at high of day, and then partial somewhere up in here, maybe do another trailing stop with my 15% risk. And so it ends up being a massive trade, whereas before, had I gotten in here, I probably would have partialed so quick, right around here, and maybe I would have gotten in on the high of day breakout here, but I would have just realized so little in here, whereas I could have just held that core the whole time, and eventually, if I get good, hold that core the whole time and see maybe another high of day break setting up, and maybe I will add in for a scalp within the core target trade here. So I'm almost done here. So that's the idea, is that we have our setup that we like, but then we have to break it down and have a process. And I think talking about the targets and how we want to manage it is very important. We should have those, and we should have rules, and of course we're going to fluctuate them. But I do think we also should have rules for how the higher time frame gives us the setup too, which will make us more consistent, because we want to make sure that we're in the right trade as well. Like, we want to make sure we're in a legit breakout. So just to fast forward here, I kind of just had a couple more tips or cool things that I saw here. So this was the daily, and you could see here how we had a little breakout, and then we had, or at least a breakout that fits my criteria, right? A breakout on this day, even though it really broke out starting at support down here, and then had more than 3 inside days here, opened near the top, broke out. That's a trade for me there. Then we had another consolidation, even better, and then here we had that fake breakdown, which started the breakout, because then it got above, ripped up through with volume. Then it broke out right here, and I would have taken that trade according to this specific setup I'm talking about. I would have traded it from there to there. Then it stopped expanding, compressed again, had 3, 4 inside days here. Actually, just these 3. because on this day I feel like there was high RVOL, so I take the breakout of these 3 days right here, boom, above 84.46, get another trade there, and then I don't believe I wouldn't trade this because this doesn't fit my criteria of 3 inside days, because these are all sort of ticking up. So that was cool, right? So now we get to this massive resistance here that I was showing earlier, where just price could not get above here for more than a few days, other than this kind of anomaly here. It just kept coming down. And so, but when you're dealing, so this is where the time frames change, because when you're dealing with this level, which these 3 inside day breakouts, these are great, like these work on a smaller time frame, but for this time frame, this takes longer to set up because it's such a big level. Much bigger players are getting in and out, and we know that is a lot more money and that takes more time. So this breakout is going to happen over days or even weeks, and I'm going to show you here how that shows here. So you can see here how it broke out, right? At least we had one candle that closed above, looked like it was breaking out, and then we had confirmation with another closed candle even higher. So the breakout is happening. And if you look here, how long this breakout has to take. You get a massive move up, and then a super long, takes like multiple weeks to retest, and then continues. Here's the weekly, and you can see here how it took a whole week for it to break up. Then it took 2 weeks to pull back, and then it took a whole nother week to retest and then break back out. So I just wanted to show how important the time frame is for what we're trading. Like these stocks all move the same way. Like AMD is doing all the same things on all the different time frames, but it depends on, it's all relative to whatever time frame you're looking at. If we're looking at a weekly, well, it takes multiple weeks to break out of this level, to pull back, and then to continue here. See right there, after that week, after those few weeks of breaking out, pulling back, retesting, you finally get on the 5th week is the real confirmation of like, or the new weekly high for another breakout move. And I just thought that was really cool here. And the other thing is this was such a big level that if you were to use the daily candles, it doesn't work as well, because we're dealing with so much money and such a big level that the smaller the time frame you go, the less perfect these levels are going to work. The levels work great. If you see a good level on the weekly, it's going to work more on the weekly than it's going to work on a daily, which is going to work even worse on a 60-minute and a 5-minute, etc., etc. As you can see here, the weekly looked great. However, on the daily pulled back and even went under multiple days under this level. It's just the spread is much bigger when you're dealing with those smaller time frames. And so that's why I'm like, when we're dealing with 1-minute candles, even if a 60-minute chart is respecting a level so well, a 1-minute might not. It might wick through 5, 10, 15 cents, but that doesn't mean shit, because the 60-minute might be looking perfect still. And sure enough, those 1-minute candles eventually get back above that level, and the 60-minute chart plays out perfectly, and you have your nice, move. So that's all I got. Thanks.